Hello everybody, welcome to the World of Bikes YouTube channel, and today we're going to be reviewing a KLR650. So this bike isn't as stock as they come generally here in South Africa. There's a ton of stock examples available. It's quite rare to find them modified unless it was someone who actually did a lot of mileage on them. So this bike has got the stage 2 dyno jet carburetor jets on it, as well as a Leovance exhaust. You know, just your basic power adders make it sound good. This bike does sound a lot better than the stock one does. It's a lot louder. You guys will notice if I accelerate hard and just let go of the throttle on decel, there is some pops and bangs. So I do think it might be a little bit on the rich side because it's doing that. But rather just a little bit on the rich side than have it run too lean. So we're going to do like just some basic town city commuting today, nothing too major, just talk about this bike in general. So my first big bike, I would say, first big road going bike was actually a KLR650. So these bikes do have a special place in my heart. We had a blue one earlier this year, I think it was February, March, that we sold. We did do a video on it, but all the files came back as corrupted after 2 attempts. So that was that. So on to the bike. KLR650, it's a single cylinder. I believe it's like 86 or 89 millimeters, the size of the piston. So it's quite a beefy piston. They are very well known as Thumpers. Now, the one complaint I have about Thumpers is vibration. It isn't going to be the smoothest engine in the world. In terms of vibration, they do vibrate quite significantly, but it's nothing bad. You get minor vibration through the handlebars, nothing seriously. You can feel it under your butt, on your legs, and that's about it. As for reliability, however, these things are absolutely bulletproof. I've seen multiple examples over 150,000 kilometers on, still on the standard engine without the engine being opened. They are incredibly reliable and they never say die. This is a very, very basic engine. There's one fault that I would say the bike has in terms of engine, and that's known as the doohickey. If you just research KLR doohickey, it's basically on the balancer shaft, I believe, on the gearbox. Sorry, couldn't get my words out there. Other than that, I really don't have any complaints. These bikes are known to use oil if you are running high RPM, which if you're looking at it realistically, most bikes do in anyways. With this bike, you're going to be cruising at around 120 kilometers per hour, right around the 5,500 RPM range, and you start limiting out at about 7.5. So you are really up there. Just a basic modification to get that RPM a little bit lower is just a tooth upgrade on your front sprocket. We actually ended up doing that on the blue KLR earlier this year for the customer. And it definitely did drop the RPM down to about 4.5, so a bit more manageable definitely in terms of high RPM highway riding. Now, these bikes aren't the fastest bikes in the world, but you will, on average, as a stock bike, you will see 150 to 160. Oh gosh. So 150 to 160 kilometers per hour. Very comfortable bikes, these. Very easy for highway riding, very easy for daily commutes, as well as off-roading. A lot of people describe the KLR650 as a dirt bike with lights, and I don't feel they're very wrong in terms of what the KLR is capable of doing. However, I do think it definitely doesn't have the same seating position. I find it's a lot more comfortable. Obviously the seats on these are very wide. This bike has had its preload adjusted for its all-rider, which definitely suits me at being 6'5" a lot. One of my biggest complaints with bikes is just being comfortable on them, especially like the super bikes. Now, if you look down on my knees, they're on the tank. There's still tons of space for them to move around and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really cramped at all. As for pros of this bike, what I would talk about is, number one, they're pretty much indestructible. They do very decent on fuel economy, but they won't do the best as compared to something like a NC700, which really is just a commuter based bike. This is in all sorts a dual sport from top to bottom. It's meant to take you anywhere and everywhere, and the only person that says you can't get there is yourself. Really, I do genuinely think that the only limiting factor of this motorcycle is the rider in terms of where it can get to. They are heavy bikes, I would say, but pretty much on par with everything in the class, in the like 650, 700, 800cc class. So comparing to a like BMW F800. Now, a lot of people think it's a bit unfair to compare it to an F800 because the F800 is significantly more pricey. For example, in South Africa, you can pick up a good F800 for around, I would say, 65 to 75,000. Same year model as this type of thing. Whereas a KLR, you're looking at 40,000 to low 40,000. That's pretty much what they go for with low mileage. So this bike's got 30,500 kilometers on the clocks. So really decently low mileage. My one complaint about this bike, however, is the brakes. I really wish that they would have done more on the brakes. Look, it does stop you fine, and if you have to do a panic brake at 120, I think you'll be okay if you catch it soon enough. But the brakes do feel rather spongy. They don't grab as well as I would hope they would. So in the front we've got a twin piston caliper in the front, but we've only got one of those, whereas on most bikes, especially your super sports, that kind of stuff, you'll see at least two of them, and then a single piston on the rear. So this bike does have brand new brake fluid as well as brand new brake pads. So I know that there isn't a limiting factor in terms of that. I wouldn't say the pads are brand new. We have broken them in. They're probably about 400 kilometers, 300, 400 kilometers old. So I do think that they're doing decently well. Just gonna get on the slow lane here. I don't want the wind noise to be too deadening. As for torque, I must admit, I don't think you're gonna find anything torquier. You'll definitely find something faster, but you're not gonna find anything torquier. Looking back at Fort 9's video, we loaded 400 pounds or 600 pounds on the back of it, and it just chugged along. The lowdown torque on this bike is absolutely ridiculous, and it's never ending. As for speed, it's not very fast, but it's definitely got the torque, which is why I think it makes such a good dual sport bike in terms of off-road use. Like I said, it's gonna take you everywhere because it's got that low down torque. You don't have to ride the clutch out so hard. Definitely making it easy on the maintenance side. As for maintenance on these bikes, just a general rule of thumb, what I do is every 5,000 kilometers we do an oil change. They've got a cartridge style filter, which is relatively very easy to get to. There's a little panel on the right hand side of the engine where they sit. Let's see if we can get some of that popping. Oh, not now. So it's got a little panel. I think it's 2 8mm bolts that takes it out. And then oil wise, I believe it takes 2.5 or 3 liters of oil, so not too bad either. Obviously you just want to check up on that oil every now and then to make sure that she's still full. Otherwise, other than that, the bike is lacking in the electronics department. Obviously it doesn't have stability control, it doesn't have ABS, doesn't have any of those things. It is in all essence a true like old school bike. There's no assists, there's no helping. It's pretty much fly by the seat of your pants and drive decently. Then again, a big complaint I have about this bike is that it doesn't have a fuel gauge. Now, I will understand if you say, you know, it's got a reserve tank for a reason, you just switch it over to reserve and you're fine. And while I do agree with that, it does get dangerous at times. If you are, for example, running on the highway, you run out of fuel and you have to switch over to your reserve tank, there's no warning that you need to switch over to reserve soon. There's no light, there's no nothing, the bike blatantly just cuts out. You need to then try and come down here, fiddle with the petcock, get it back onto the reserve position, and there you go. Your bike will start up pretty much instantly after that, and you should be good. I have done it on the highway while the bike was riding. The bike died, switched it over, dropped the clutch, bike bump started, no problem. But I do think that that is something that definitely could be improved upon. Even if there was just a low fuel light, I think it would have made a massive difference. But nevertheless, it's still a great bike in its essence. Now the KLR engine hasn't been changed since I believe 82, all the way up to 2018, where the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 ceased production, or the Gen 2 did. However, the new KLR is pretty much the exact same engine with the exact same issues, except now it's got what do you call it, it's got fuel injection instead of carbureted injection. You know, it's got all the emission stuff with it and all that kind of stuff, and of course an updated look, which is a massive improvement, I think. Although I don't think that the Gen 2 is a very ugly bike. But yeah, I think that concludes it for today's ride. I hope that you guys enjoyed the review. If you do find yourself coming back, or you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing, drop a like on the video, and tell us what you thought of it. If you think that there's any improvements you would like to see made on the videos. We are currently working on getting better mics, just to get some better audio out for you guys. And then if you've ridden one of these, give us your thoughts, put it in the comments below. Let's see what we can make happen in terms of that. I would love to hear everyone's opinion on this bike. And that's me. Drive safe, enjoy.